liftoff. We have liftoff.
When it's my life on the line, what type of a team do I want out there holding it in their palm? And the answer I came to is, I think, the identical answer you would come to in the identical circumstance. When your life is on the line, you're going to want a team that's the best holding it in their palm. And how do teams get to be the best? They get there by practicing fundamentals, by doing little things consistently and religiously day in and day out until they become as natural as breathing. You don't even think about them. I want everybody on the team understanding the essence of responsibility as it applies to the individual as well as it applies to the leadership. And I want a team that's filled with courageous self-leaders. It's about normalization of deviance. What is this? Well, it's that natural human tendency, particularly in pressure circumstances, to want to take shortcuts, to accept a lower standard of performance. Maybe it's a lower standard of personal performance, a lower standard of performance for some team you lead, lower standard of performance for some machine firefighting equipment that you oversee. But it's very human to find yourself in pressure circumstances, and God knows you folks find it on every call. Maybe the shortcut is what Harold was talking about, not doing a proper risk assessment. Maybe it's not having the right communication in place. Maybe it's not wearing the right protective equipment, whatever. And so you take that shortcut, and guess what the consequences are? There are no bad consequences. You aren't injured. Nobody's injured. The response, the emergency response, proceeds successfully. There are no bad consequences to your actions in taking that shortcut. What's that going to do? It's going to loop it back into your brain and reinforce the rightness of that earlier decision to take the shortcut in the first place. So what's liable to happen the very next time you find yourself in these same pressure circumstances? And I guarantee there's going to be a next time, particularly in your businesses. Because there were no bad consequences the last time you took the shortcut, you're going to be mightily tempted to do it again. You do it enough times, and what happens? The shortcut becomes the norm. Here are the standards that you're expected to be meeting. Here's where you are in execution. This deviance is invisible to you. You don't even think about it. It has become normalized into your actions, into your team actions. And what happens with normalization of deviance, it leads to predictable surprises. And if you ever want, and I'll tell you, in hazardous environments, predictable surprises on the job can be injurious and they can be deadly. If you ever want an object lesson in what normalization of deviance can do, a predictable surprise, look at Challenger. Challenger was no accident. Challenger was a predictable surprise. At the time that rocket came apart, scattered throughout Nassiter contractors and filing cabinets and desk drawers were written documents, memos, predicting that the exact thing that did happen, i.e. failure of this O-ring, was going to happen. And on 14 of 24 flights before Challenger, Challenger was number 25. On 14 of 24 flights before Challenger, in the inspection process, quality assurance and safety people noted that the O-rings, which were never designed to be touched by fire, were being touched by fire. Challenger was no accident. Challenger was a predictable surprise. This is a criticality 1 deviance we're looking at, a burned O-ring. And at that point, the standard for the team was what? Ground the fleet. You cannot fly with a criticality 1 deviance. But the team could not bring themselves to adhere to that standard of performance established those many years earlier. Why? Because it's not a no-pressure situation. Ground the fleet. But under this tremendous pressure, they start rationalizing why they can continue to fly or how to take a shortcut, to accept a lower standard of performance. And while I'm telling this story, I hope all of you are thinking about how many times you have rationalized. We're all human. We all come under pressure. How many times have you rationalized it's okay to take the shortcut? So now here the NASA team has rationalized it's okay to take the shortcut. What they've done here now is accepted something that was never expected. It wasn't that the O-rings were designed to take damage and continue to function. They were never to see damage. But in this pressure cooker, the team has rationalized why it's okay to see some damage, something that's not expected and not understood. And flight operations continue. And guess what the consequences are? There are no bad consequences. The next couple missions return pristine O-rings. Boosters that show pristine O-rings. And every time they break apart one of those boosters, see those perfect O-rings, what's that doing? Looping back into the brains of the NASA team it was okay to take the shortcut in the first place. Then they get the boosters back from the 6th shuttle mission. They see more damaged O-rings. What happens now? We're deeper into the program. The expectations are higher. The promises have been made are greater. Harder now to go back to that original standard of performance that says ground the fleet. And now they have that history of having gotten away with in the past. It becomes a little bit easier to rationalize why it's okay to continue flight operations again. Well, for another dozen times or so, they get back boosters where the damage to the O-rings doesn't exceed what they saw on Flight 2, until on Flight 25, Challenger's mission, the damage exceeds in a great way what they saw on Flight 2. Total primary and backup O-ring failure, loss of the vehicle, and the death of 7 astronauts. Basically, by the time Challenger was occurring, a large body of the team that was working this O-ring problem had come to expect to see O-ring damage. Now, I want you to think about that. We'd gone from something we had correctly defined as intolerable to accept to something over 4 years and 24 missions has become what? Expected. Normalization of deviance. It is a killer of teams, folks. Literally, in hazardous environments, it will kill people. My life on the line. What type of a team do I want out there holding it in their palm? And the answer I came to is, I think, the identical answer you would come to in the identical circumstance. When your life is on the line, you're going to want a team that's the best